Moonshine Jesus, nobody in the sky. Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We are glad that you're joining us for this episode where we'll be talking about the electric state. I am joined by my good friend Caleb. How you doing today, Caleb?
I'm doing great today, Mark. Good to be with you. Can't wait to talk about the electric state.
This should be fun. Listen, a couple of housekeeping things. Make sure that you know that we are brought to you and by progressivechristianity.org, and we highly encourage you to go check out the resources there. There's all kinds of great progressive Christian liturgies, books, essays. So go check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. Also, go make sure you're following us, the Moonshine Jesus Show. Follow us on Facebook, our Facebook page there, or anywhere that you can get your podcast. Make sure that you've signed up to get ours every time it is updated. We're just glad that you're here with us, and we need to warn you right off the top that this is a spoiler-full zone, not a spoiler-free zone. So just know that if you have not seen the electric state, you might want to pause it here and watch it, enjoy yourself, come back and enjoy yourself some more. So, but Caleb, before we go too far with this, before we move into another segment, we need some adult beverages, man. It's St. Patty's Day anyway, so we should have beverages to go along, don't you think?
Absolutely. You cannot go through St. Patty's Day without alcohol, and so I don't plan to. Okay, so do you remember the scene where Millie Bobby Brown's character is with Chris Pratt's character, and they're coming up with a cover story, and he says, "Okay, your name's Veronica," and she says, "Veronica? Whose name? Veronica? No, Veronica." So I found a drink called the Veronica, but I am calling it the Veronica.
I love it. What do you got going on there?
Okay, it's grapefruit juice, it's Saint Germain liqueur, simple syrup, and vodka. And here it is, the Veronica.
The Veronica. I like it. Well,
what do you have?
I have an advantage over you in that I was of drinking age in the 90s, this is set in an alternative 90s. So, and I happen to know that one of the drinks that was really, really popular in the 90s also has the word electric in it. So I have made myself an electric lemonade. That's blue curacao, citrus, vodka, and lemonade. And they are delicious, and they're dangerous, and they are that lovely neon blue. So
that's a cool shade of blue.
Yeah, an electric lemonade. So I think we're set, probably ready to go. So let's take a quick drop, come back on the other side, and geek out a little bit about the show.
Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. This is our Geek Out section. So this is a segment where we really let our geek flags fly. We are geeks, and so we like to geek out. And then in just a few moments, we will come back and talk about the religious theology and the political aspects of this as well. So the Electric State is a science fiction action adventure film produced by the Russo brothers. The screenplay was written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and it's loosely based on the 2018 illustrated novel. The film stars a whole bunch of people: Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt and Ke Huy Quan and Jason Alexander and Woody Harrelson, Anthony Mackie and Brian Cox, and so on and so on and so on. A lot of people, a lot of big names. And that probably is partially one of the reasons why it has a reported budget of $320 million, one of the most expensive films ever made. And so, Mark, two
Yeah.
kind of related questions here.
All right.
One, I want to know if you think it was worth the $320 million in what we
Okay.
saw. And then the second question is kind of tied into that. It is one of the films that is a pattern of films that we've seen lately where critics and audiences are divided.
Mhm.
And the critical score on this on Rotten Tomatoes is 14%, has 14% fresh rating, but the audience score is 75%. And so one critic described this, Mark, as akin to sifting through a dumpster with discarded scraps of better films. And so I want to know two questions. One, do you think the money was well spent? And two, do you think the critics are right about this?
So no, that is an outrageous amount of money to make a film. It would have been nearly impossible for this film to be good enough to justify that kind of budget. Just impossible. And it doesn't end up feeling like it was worth $350 million. It just doesn't. But to continue that thought, no, the critics are wrong. They are basing, in my opinion, they're basing everything on the fact that they were expecting a $350 million film and they didn't get it, and now they're pouting about it. And I think it's absolutely absurd and ridiculous that people do it, because you know what? This movie is fun. I mean, it is a lot of fun. Does it do anything new in terms of storytelling? Absolutely not. Does it use tropes from other shows? 100%. Did the soundtrack sound like it came straight out of Back to the Future 2? It did sound like it. Of course, it was the same composer, but still, I don't care. This was so much fun. About halfway through, I had seen that it had low ratings. About halfway through, my wife and I were watching together, and I turned around to her and I needed to say it out loud. I said, I love this movie. I love this movie. I'm having so much fun. And she said she was too. She was like, this is great. And every time I've heard her talk to anyone, she says, oh, by the way, have you seen The Electric State? You need to watch it. It's a lot of fun. So that's my take. I think critics have gotten out of control in general, and this movie proves it. What did you think?
Yeah. So I agree that it wasn't a $320 million movie. Probably not. And I'm guessing big names, a lot of CGI. There was a lot of criticism of the CGI too, which I didn't feel like was founded. I thought it was pretty good, especially for what it was trying to accomplish. And so I didn't know anything about this movie before I went in. I didn't read anything. I didn't look at anything. And I was watching it on Saturday night after I'd done like my sermon preparation and stuff. And it had been a busy, hectic week. And I'm like, I'm going to watch this right now. And I started watching it, and I'm like, this is a lot of fun. This is real nostalgic. This is like watching a movie in the late 80s, early 90s. So like it's campy and it's fun and it's intentionally over the top. And like after a hectic week, I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted to watch on a Saturday night. And about halfway through, Mark, about the time you turned to your wife and said, this is great, I love this movie, I was thinking, this is great, I love this movie. I was watching it myself, and I'm like, I bet it has horrible Rotten Tomatoes score. And so I went and I looked at it, and I'm like,
sure enough,
100% predictable. Because this is the same kind of thing that we're seeing. Like, you can't have a movie that is for fun and just enjoy it. But the other thing is, I think critics kind of miss the point of the movie. Like for me, I thought the point was, I mean, other than whatever commentaries it's making, but like it's feeling as a film, the way it was filmed, the type of characterization we saw, pacing of the movie. I thought it was all meant to really play on that nostalgia. It really did feel like you took a movie out of the late 80s, early 90s, and you put it here and told it in a new way and watched that. Is that kind of
No,
accurate?
I agree.
Did you? Yeah,
I completely agree. I don't know that I processed it that way, but I know I experienced it that way. It was
Mhm.
very much, it felt like the movie age that I grew up in that I loved so much, everything from the
Yeah,
mid 80s to the late 90s that just had that kind of it was not overcomplicated, but it was meant to make you have some feels, to make
yeah,
you kind of be engaged in a story that was easy enough to follow, but engaging enough,
yeah.
and characters that you cared about.
Yes.
What's
Well,
wrong
see,
with that, man? What's wrong
that
with
was the
that?
other thing. So a lot of critics said that you couldn't really get invested in the characters, that the dialogue was corny, which the dialogue was corny. It was
Yeah,
supposed
it's
to be
supposed to
corny.
be.
I thought that was part of the fun, but I just didn't think it was accurate that you didn't care
Yeah,
about the characters.
yeah, I agree.
I felt like Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown had great chemistry. I thought it was a lot of
Mhm.
fun to watch
Yeah,
them on the screen together. I thought they really played off each other. In fact, I thought the movie really came alive when those two characters got together. When they were together, that's for me when it felt like the movie really took off. How'd you feel about the characterization
yeah.
that we saw
I
here?
I love the characters. I really enjoyed each character that each actor created, and I'm completely with you. When Millie Bobby Brown and Pratt were on the screen together, there was something happening. There was this awkward energy that they shared with each other, that you kind of enjoyed watching. You know,
Yeah,
it felt engaging, and you couldn't quite wait to see who was going to jab at the other one
yeah,
very gently and play. Yeah, that was so much fun. So
yeah.
much fun.
The
I
whole
felt like that about
Veronica
all.
Veronica thing.
That's right.
Case in point, right? It
It
was
was
just
so
fun to see them
funny.
play off each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was so much fun. So much fun. I actually saw an interview afterwards that was the two of them in that room where they're with all of the nostalgia, and
Uh-huh.
watched the two of them naturally playfully jab at each other just like that in real life. So it was based on a real relationship that they expertly ported over to the movie screen and shared with all of us. I thought it was brilliant and fun. But I felt like that about all the characters. I've heard people talk about, well, it's really hard to have a movie where there's so many robots that you're supposed to care about. Wrong. Wrong.
Right.
I
Incorrect.
loved
Yeah.
these characters. I was invested in them. When Mr. Peanut lost
I
his hat, I
I
was
say Mr.
I was
Peanut.
I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken. I
I,
thought the acting was great. The characters were great, and I cared about them. I did. I just cared about
I did too. I think I fell in love with the movie whenever I
them.
saw that the robot resistance was led by Mr. Peanut. I'm
It
like,
was the
that's great. This is
Isn't that
fantastic.
fantastic?
You can't beat Mr. Peanut being up there negotiating the peace treaty.
Right?
It's just great.
Exactly.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of fun, and you really cared, and I think
Yeah, you
that's the
did.
other thing to see Chris Pratt's character with his robot, and to hear like how relationship developed, how they cared about each
Mhm.
other. One was a robot. I thought that added some depth. I thought it was
I
interesting.
agree.
Other than maybe the "I love you more than a friend" thing, I don't know exactly what they were going for there or how that landed, but
Yeah, it's okay. For me, it just because of the relationship, he felt like he was telling him that you're like my brother. You're like family.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
not, you're not some animatronic thing that happens to be in my life that makes it better. You're part of my
like
immediate
real,
people. Yeah, my people.
yeah,
You're part of my
yeah,
people. So I
yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think certainly the humor between the two of them was a lot of fun to watch as
It
well.
was. It was.
So I've got a question, Mark. We both like this movie. We both have proven that the critics are wrong and that they don't know what they're talking about. One
Yeah.
thing I was kind of curious about. So Millie Bobby Brown's character's brother, Chris,
Yeah.
goes into a coma, and the whole reason that the humans win the war against the robots is because that they're able to use Chris's brain to kind of power this solution. Uh,
Right.
that did feel very much like an 80s kind of explanation for what was happening. But Mark, why did they need Chris's brain to solve these problems, and why was it specifically Chris's brain, and why?
Because they said it very clearly. He's a very special boy.
He's a
Did you
very
not hear
special boy.
Did you not hear I don't understand how you're not following this. He is a very special boy. Yeah, I mean, it was a little silly, but then again, it's very 80s campy kind of silly. And
Yeah.
the whole setup was that he's so brilliant. He's brilliant, unlike anyone ever has been before. Maybe even more so than Einstein. There was even a little joke somewhere in there about Einstein, just to kind of get us thinking about it. And so, yeah, we had to have a reason that Millie Bobby Brown's character had to go there and had to get there and had to get alongside of the robots and
he's a MacGuffin.
Yeah, exactly. I was okay with it. I was fine with it. I do think it might have been a little bit more of a convincing storyline if they would have made him more special and not just say he's a very special boy. Possibly more special than anyone ever has been, kind of thing is what they were saying. Like, I think that they could have messed with that a little bit more and to help us buy into it and go with it. But in the end, I was fine. It didn't bother me that much.
Honestly, me too. I was willing to suspend my disbelief, other than to just be like, "Well, why is it Chris? Who cares? It doesn't really matter." And I got to see Ke Huy Quan as the doctor. So this is. Yeah, so this is another thing I wanted to ask you about. So his character in particular has been criticized, and people have said his acting felt like cardboard and boring. Is that an accurate description of what his character was like?
I don't believe so personally. I mean, I thought he was an interesting character and engaging. Could he have had a little more heart considering the role that he played? And what his character ultimately was. Yeah, but I kind of feel like he was written that way for some reason. I'm not really sure why. And I think that Quan basically just played to how it was written. But he plays the character he plays, and there's something always endearing about that character. But at cardboard, that's unfair. That's unfair.
I think it was unfair too. I actually think he did a great job. I actually loved watching him on screen. And I think especially that we got to see him both kind of as a human and as a robot. And I thought he really was great when he was as a robot.
I was going to say, I liked him better as a robot. I liked him both. But boy, his robot character was fun.
He was a lot of fun. He was fun to watch. He was engaging. I cared about him too. One other question I want to ask before we end the segment line. Okay. So does this movie effectively communicate a message about our relationship with technology? And if so, what was that message?
Well, I don't want to tip too much of my hat for the next segment, but let's say trying to keep it in the geeky realm. I think it told the story in a way that you could see the good and the bad. And I think that that's important because we have far too many people in this world who either try to fully villainize or fully say this is the thing that's going to save us as a species. And I think one of the things that this effectively did was introduce the complexities of the reality of how we use tools in general, but particularly advanced tools like AI and robots. That'd be my trying to remain in the kind of geeky world answer to it. That's where I end up. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it was fun to watch it as if it were in the 90s, and to see these giant kind of VR headsets that let people kind of remain partially partially conscious and partially. And I think it was also fun to see Jason Alexander as a
until he took his helmet off. I didn't know it was him. I did not know it, and not until he took it off, I was like, oh my gosh.
I think I've spent so much time watching Seinfeld. I'm like, it's George. I hear George's voice, and so that's what I would say. That I thought it was kind of a fun 90s-esque commentary on technology as well. But it also that while it remained relevant to some of the stuff that we were talking about, that we talk about today, that it also took us back in time a little bit to what conversation was like in the 90s. And for me, that was kind of a fun nostalgic piece to remember when technology was a little bit different, a little bit less complicated. Okay, I've got a million other things I want to talk about, but
Yeah.
if we do that, we won't get to our Theopolitico segment. So why don't we take a break, take a drink, and come back and talk about theology and politics.
Hello, welcome back, and thank you for joining us for our Theopolitical segment. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. In the movie, the world has suffered greatly due to like sort of the unchecked power of corporations. Looking at our world today, from things like social media algorithms to the influence of big tech and big tech companies in politics and stuff, do you think our current political and corporate landscape is heading in the same direction as the movie? And are we already ultimately, if so, too deep into it to change course?
I think we're not headed anywhere good. That we've certainly seen unregulated capitalism, and that has been what we've been headed towards for a very long time. And we have continued to see restrictions rolled back against large corporations, and certainly under the current presidential administration, that is what we are going to continue to see is deregulation. And I don't think that that's good for anybody. And so I think in terms of corporations, so we're seeing that. In terms of the algorithms and things that we're seeing on social media, I think that, as we've talked about a little bit before, that like my view on this has changed a little bit over time. That like I think that that these corporations now maybe more than any need to be regulated, because this is this virtual space is the space in which a lot of us are spending our times, and so our time. And so I think a lot of us, especially who weren't digital natives, who grew up with different kinds of technology, that we kind of segregated real life with like digital life. And for a long time, or at least I did. And then like over time, I've recognized that like, no, actually digital life, like what happens online, that counts. That's real life. If free speech is being regulated online, that means free speech is being regulated. That if we're being controlled online and our data is being stolen online, that means that like that's really happening to us. And so I think that like with all these advancements in technology that have happened so quickly, that policy just really hasn't caught up because of that. And so I think we need to move towards regulation of those things. And I do not think we're headed in that direction. And I think in a large part we're already there. We're already in the place of the movie. My 2 cents. What do you think?
I definitely agree. I mean, I caution us because at this point in the discussion, it's easy to fall into like that technology is somehow inherently bad, and I think we both don't believe that. But I will say, when technology is used to control and to manipulate and to monitor us for profit, that's when it becomes a problem. And particularly when it's unregulated. And in the US, I mean, the bottom line is we are at the place, we are beyond the place, and it snuck up on us, kind of like you said, so fast. We are definitely at the place that big tech has too much power in this world because they've been left unchecked and unregulated. And it's time for us to demand accountability on their part and regulation from the government. And what we ultimately have to end up doing, I believe, in this situation is to ask the question, like, who's benefiting from all this technology and who's getting left behind or getting used because of all this technology. And we need to find a way to balance that and give back individuals the power of their own autonomy, including their electronic autonomy, and ownership of who they are in the electronic social media world. That's kind of where I'm falling with it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think you mentioned last week that it's a tool, right? And it's
Right.
either just like religion, that it's you use it for good or you use it for bad. But it is, no matter how we feel about it, it's just a reality. It's just a part of our lives. There's no
Yeah.
disconnecting. We're so intertwined now, but I don't think there's a way. It's like when we faced all this stuff with social media, with TikTok shutting down, and with Meta getting rid of fact checking and stuff, and like all this stuff, like for a while, it felt like real destabilizing to life.
Yeah.
Like thinking, because that's like losing a whole social outlet. It's like losing a whole group of people that are in your life. It's like losing platforms and all of this stuff. It's like that part of our lives is a part of our lives, is a real
Exactly.
and it's there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's continue moving on with another question. This is going to be a two-parter question. The first part's kind of just fun question, but then I'm going to give you them both. One's kind of fun. One sort of moves a little more seriously. So in the end, in the movie, Michelle sacrifices her brother,
yeah,
to save humanity, right? Which raises questions about, as good ministers, it raises questions about redemptive sacrifice for the greater good. We often see that idea in theological traditions, but how does it play out in a political context? Do you think the current U.S. political climate reflects this kind of sacrifice in any way? And are we willing to make sacrifices for the greater good, such as, pushing for climate action, healthcare reform, justice for marginalized communities? Or are we all just, have we ultimately as a nation become too self-centered as a nation? I mean, and I said, I was thinking about my next question, but so this is a very serious question.
Yeah, where's the fun part in this, Mark? This
there's not a fun
really
part.
kind of. This sounds actually kind of.
I had my
kind
questions.
Of
I had my questions.
Hearing this question,
I thought it was in a different order. Admittedly.
Let me put it to you like this. I would like to see a little bit more sacrifice on behalf of anybody. I mean, I would like for Democrats to sacrifice a little bit more in standing up to the administration. I would like to see somebody sacrifice something in terms of power. In terms of us as a nation, are we willing to sacrifice something? No, I mean, we haven't been willing to sacrifice anything. We haven't been willing to put in legislations that would help to prevent climate change. We haven't been willing to share our wealth. We haven't been willing to stop the war machine. We haven't been willing to do any of that stuff, no matter who has been in charge. I mean, granted, some administrations have been better than others. We've put more regulations in some places than others, but we've not made a dent in any of these global problems, Mark. And it's because we are so afraid. We operate, I think, out of this place of scarcity. And we think that we just need to accumulate, that the answer is to get more for us. And as long as we're okay, that's all that really matters. And that's like contrary to absolutely everything that Jesus taught. So,
I completely agree. I think we do sacrifice, but I think we sacrifice for the wrong things. You can see it right now in the world. People are being asked over and over again to make sacrifices for an unjust system. And some reason we make those sacrifices. And I think we need a redemptive storyline for the United States, one that leads us more towards justice rather than the unjust system that we have. And I don't think it's inevitable that we continue down this road where we sacrifice for an unjust system, but I do think that we need a lot more people stepping up and saying that this is not okay, and that we are willing to make sacrifices if it leads towards justice. I'm gonna truncate my thoughts on that because I do want to get to this question that had a fun thought and
I like that.
More serious question. All right. So in the movie, robots fight for their rights, right? Which parallels, obviously, civil rights movements in our world. With the growing role of AI and automation and robotics in the workforce, the just for fun question is, do you think that one day we'll have to confront the question of the rights for machines? That's the fun question.
Yes.
The other question is, but more immediately, How does this relate to the ongoing fight for civil rights in the U.S., especially as marginalized groups continue to face systemic oppression?
Yeah, so I think that what once seemed like a faraway fantasy, like robots having some kind of rights, and
Yeah,
I will say that one of the fun things about this show was that it kind of flipped expectations, that it was human beings who were causing the suffering of the robots and not the other way
yeah,
around. And so I
right.
thought that was kind of interesting. But I think we're actually real close to that. We have seen such advancements in AI that
Mhm,
AI is able to do so much stuff that human beings were once only able to do. That like
mhm,
I think we're not far away from seeing AI put in robots. The creation of androids or something like that is uh, not out of the realm of possibility anytime soon. So
yeah.
I think that absolutely could happen, and that will be very interesting to define, like who has rights and who doesn't, and what makes uh, consciousness and what isn't consciousness. And so I think that that's certainly a philosophical question that will be interesting to resolve in terms of how it relates to rights right now. I mean, how are we going to guarantee rights for artificial beings? We can't even ensure
Yeah,
rights for like
exactly.
human beings, and
Hmm.
we're seeing those stripped away. And so I'm not sure. That's assuming, Mark, I guess, that like we don't uh, cause nuclear war, we don't cause some kind of dystopian event, that climate change doesn't kill all of humanity off before any of that happens. Maybe we're closer to like Fallout or something, where we're getting ready to see kind of an end of the world kind of event. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about AI and worker
The
rights
AI,
and stuff like that?
I think there is a point, assuming, as you say, that we don't blow everything up. I do think there will be a point where civil rights for AI, robotic combination, something is going to need to be addressed. I think it's further down the road than we believe it is, even with the idea of how quickly, particularly with AI now, how quickly we're multiplying the advancements in the fields. There is something, and I don't talk about this word much, and I don't even know that I have the strongest definition of it. There is something about having a soul, having
Mhm.
something larger than ones and zeros that connect in really clever ways, that hasn't occurred yet, that may never occur. And until it does, I'm not sure that you can make a great legal argument for civil rights for what's happening. You
Yeah.
can make a really great emotional argument for it, but I'm not sure that you can make a legal argument for it. But I double down on your observation that when we are having such a hard time presenting rights to people who do have a soul, who are human, who
Mhm.
truly should be seen as equals, having equal reflection of the divine within them as anyone else does. When we can't even do that, I think we're going to find it and struggle very hard to do so with anything else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it right there, because we don't want to cut short our last segment. One of our it's our not one of our favorite segments. It's our favorite segment,
Favorite.
the Make Me Look Stupid segment. So let's take a break, finish our drinks, and come back with the Make Me Look Stupid segment.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're entering our final segment, the Make Me Look Stupid segment. And Mark, I'm
Yes.
curious. Do you have a question for me? I'm going to let you go first. You have
Oh,
a
lovely.
question for me? Yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to be benevolent. I want to know if you're going to make me look stupid, or if you're going to make me make some kind of a prediction, or if you just have a
I
question.
I just have a question, and I don't think that I'm going to have the opportunity for this question to ultimately. It is sort of a prediction, but I
Yeah.
don't think that I'm ultimately going to get the opportunity to see whether or not you're right
Yeah.
or wrong about this question. I'm just curious. At the very end
Hmm.
of the movie, we see the robot that embodies Christopher
Yeah.
thrown into a trash heap. And
Yeah.
then a dog comes up and starts licking at a pool
Uh-huh.
of water of some sort. And all of a sudden, we see Cosmo, the robot that Christopher embodies,
Yeah.
standing up in
Yes.
the reflection. I'm going to assume that you and I both believe that that means Christopher is in there.
Right.
How did that happen?
Yeah, well, and I think you're right. I don't know that we'll ultimately ever get an answer unless they make a sequel, and it doesn't it doesn't seem
Where
real
they
likely.
spent this kind of money and got bashed by the unless this is Netflix top movie every week for the next 6 months,
Yes,
there's no way we're getting it, which is
I,
a shame. I heard a rumor that
yeah,
there might be a series based on it somehow. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't who knows? I doubt very highly that with how things have played out that we're going to be fortunate enough to get a little more of it. But I am very curious as
yeah,
to what you think happened.
yeah. So I think it has to do with what they were talking about at the very beginning, where Chris says particles can stay uh, long after they've come into contact with something else. And so I think in the same way that we don't get a lot of logical explanation of like why Chris's brain is the great brain that is
Mhm.
going to save humanity, that it's similar here, that I think it's a connection with the robot and it has
Yeah.
to do with his particles, his consciousness being transferred to this other robot.
I've got to say, I am so impressed. I am so
Thank you.
like I am the quantum theory geek here.
Mhm.
I did not think that you would make the leap to quantum entanglement, which is what they were talking about at the beginning of this. And I think that's the right, brilliant, perfect leap. Like he is this mind that's so much more brilliant than anything else that's out there. And I think he understood quantum mechanics and quantum entanglement to such a deep level, more so than anyone else did, that he knew that as she killed him, that he was going to be able to transfer through quantum entanglement uh, into that space that part of his reality already existed. I am. We can stop the show right now, as far as I'm concerned. That was brilliant, sir. Well
Thank
done.
you. Thank you. Yes.
Slow clap. Brilliant.
Yes.
Absolutely
Yes.
brilliant.
Okay, I've got a question for
All
you
right, let's do it.
now. Okay, so one of the quotes in the movie that really stood out to me that I really liked was,
Yeah.
"Our world is a tire fire floating on a mountain of piss." Curious, is that true or false, Mark?
Oh God. Oh, I did not see that one coming, but it was a brilliant quote. A tire fire floating on I think it's an overly simplistic question. I think there are 100% times when what this world is a tire fire floating on an ocean of piss. There is no doubt. There is so many
Mark, I'm
times.
trying to give you a true or false. Okay.
Oh, a true false. In that case, ultimately the
comment.
answer is false. Then ultimately
Okay.
the answer
Okay.
is false. No, no. There are moments where it feels like that. There's moments where I think you could even calculate out that it's more that than anything else. But I am definitely a person that believes that there is always hope. There is always redemption. Is always a constant possibility. And so we need some butterflies in that scene somewhere. We need a few rainbows that are trying to peek out from behind the piss clouds. Uh, I don't know. That's where I land anyway. What do you think? Is it? Please tell me.
Well, I'll tell you the reason it stood out for me. I think if I have to choose, a true or false, if I got to give a dichotomous answer here, I'll go false. But I also feel like right now a lot of people. I've been talking to a lot of people who are like, yeah, this is the state of our world right now. To the point that like people are feeling so discouraged that it's like there's no way out of this tire fire, like this is just what's happening. And I get that because it does feel kind of hopeless sometimes. But excuse me, I think you're right that like finding the butterflies and the rainbows and finding the points of life that you enjoy is a really good thing to do right now, especially as it feels like things are falling apart. But that it's necessary to also enjoy life. And so to watch mindless sci-fi action adventure comedy sometimes has the point of kind of ripping us out of reality and letting us have a little bit of fun. And so if for nothing else, I think this movie came at just the right time to give us a little bit of fun to think about.
I love that answer. Yes, sir. I agree.
So I'm going to swim out of the river of piss, and hopefully all of humanity will, and get somewhere better. So next week, Mark, you had a great idea for a show, and I'm kind of excited about this. What was your idea?
So this literally the night of my birthday. My birthday is on Thursday. That night, we are dropping the new live action version of Snow White.
Yeah.
And I think that could be so much fun. You got Rochelle Ziegler, Gal Gadot, some great actresses. We all know the story, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do with it. And there's a lot to unpack in that story that you and I think could have a lot of fun considering on the show.
I think it'll be fun. And they've already tried to create some like drama there, like between the two lead actresses. Do you see that? Like
I did. I heard about that.
The tension, whatever. And then you like read the articles and it's like, oh, well, they're like 20 years apart, so they don't have anything in common. It's just funny how they and other things, I'm sure. Yeah. So lots of fun things to talk about. I'm gonna go see it with my 9-year-old, Mark. I love
even better.
Suggestion. It sounds like
I can't wait to hear that experience, man. I wish so badly that I could be watching it through a 9-year-old's eyes. I want that so badly. I imagine that would be magical, actually.
Yes, I think so. In fact, I think sometimes I could go back to being 9 instead of just being a 9-year-old in a 39-year-old's body, and that would be okay. So, okay, that sounds good. Snow White. Okay, let's watch it this weekend, and we'll see you all next time on the Moonshine Jesus Show.
Moonshine Jesus.